Tigers lead the Royals by a score of 3-1. Steve Physioc, Rex Hudler. We're now joined by one of the greatest scouts in the history of Major League Baseball, Art Stewart, who has just come out with this book, The Art of Scouting, written by the great Sam Mellinger, terrific writer here in Kansas City. And Art, one of the reasons I think Sam wanted to do it was because you're one of the great storytellers of our time, and you have so much history, whether it's about Mickey Mantle or about George Brett. So many memories in the Midwest with the Royals and with the New York Yankees when you were with the Yanks.
Well, and you know, Sam was so perfect in describing everything. He told it the way I told it to him. After I read the proof of the book, I thought I was talking back to myself. He did that good of a job.
Fantastic. Art, tell us a little bit about what's in the book.
Well, it's really dedicated to the scouts, the faceless men of baseball, as Branch Rickey called them. For every player that we see out here tonight, some scout found that young man in the cornfields of Iowa, or maybe the ghetto of Chicago, or a little poverty-stricken town in Dominican Republic. Some scout found that player, and it's the lifeline of our game. And what I wanted to do, and I hope I've achieved it, is to show the scout's life and the stories that go along with it of a scout. And some of the great stories, whether it's a Bo Jackson, so we have a chapter on Bo, the real story on signing Bo Jackson, how I lost the last 30-game winner in this game for $3,000, Dennis McLean. I would have had Dennis as a Yankee for $3,000 more, and I couldn't get it because they had to protect the player at that time. If you gave him over $8,000, and we had Mantle, and we had Maris, and we had Whitey Ford, and we had Berra, and as a result, it was they just wouldn't give me any more money.
Is the story about the first draft ever in there?
The story about the first draft was in there, and it's very interesting on what went on there and how the older scouts, what a tough time they had adjusting to it, and that first scout session in New York in the old Roosevelt Hotel, and how one team would take a player and the other guy would swear across the room at him because he had the card in his hand. That was the player they were going to take. And finally, after a couple of years, they decided we have to put this on a conference call. This is
too dangerous.
It was too dangerous with some of those older guys in there.
Maybe they wanted to fight.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Guthrie comes too far inside and hits J.D. Martinez. So the Tigers, with a rally, started in the third inning with a walk to Cabrera. Now hitting Martinez, and 2-on with nobody out, facing Torrey Hunter, who's been absolutely on fire. Well, we're visiting with Art Stewart, who has spent 7 decades inside the game, and he had to be a baseball scout or something in baseball. He was born on Babe Ruth's 32nd birthday and has witnessed baseball greats such as Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, and of course our great Royal George Brett. And could you talk about how you were able to draft George in the 2nd round?
Well, at that time I was an area scout. I didn't see George until after he signed. He went to Billings, Montana, and our reports on George were good, but they weren't spectacular. But the thing that I saw when I did see him in the Fall League was the greatest work ethic of any player that I ever saw this game in 62 years.
Wow.
George gave himself, of course, to Charlie Lau and became the hitter he did. But George, the work ethic was unbelievable. And I'll never forget his last game in the big leagues when the reporters asked him, George, what do you want to do in your last at bat? And everybody thought, hit one out of the park, hit a walk-off home run or something. George said, I want to hit the ball back to the pitcher and run the first base as hard as I can. That was his answer.
That explains him and a lot of other guys that respect the game. And we were just talking about that in last night's broadcast out in Tampa, Art, about if you want to be the best, you have to be prepared to work for it. You've got a lot of natural skills, and you've seen them over the 7 decades, but the guys that work the hardest get the most.
Without a doubt, Rex. And I've seen through the years players with the equal talent of the guys that have gone to the big leagues, but they didn't have the work ethic. They didn't want it bad enough, and they didn't push themselves hard enough. And the guys that do that are the ones that we see up here as we're looking at these players tonight.
Well, Salvador Perez, when he came out of Venezuela, was not necessarily the highest rated player to come out of Venezuela. Now he's become one of the best players in the major leagues. As a ground ball struck to Valencia, it goes second, one, first base, two, and a double play. But just generally speaking, a scout went and saw Salvador Perez, and just generally, what is a scout looking for in a catcher like a Salvador Perez, who might be 16 years old? What does he see that he can project into the future?
Well, the first thing, looking at a young man like Salvador, 16 years old, you're looking for arm strength. You're looking for some athletic ability and mobility behind the plate. And Salvador did all those things when our people saw him down there at such a young age. I didn't see Salvador until we signed him, and I can honestly say he was an average-looking prospect his first year in the rookie league, and his first in A-ball, and then he came into the fall league, and that's when I told Dayton, I said, this young man is come on like gangbusters, and he was facing double and AAA pitching, and then the rest was history. After that, Salvador just came on, and came on so quick.
As big as he was, were you concerned about his weight at that age?
I think we were a little at the time, but at the same time, you saw some quickness in him, and you saw, for his size, behind the plate, he just moved so well, and of course he threw so well. Our concern at the time, Rex, was how well was he going to hit, and he's exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, from what I remember talking to you during spring training, you said when you saw him early, he was hitting line drives, but not with power. And the power just came the last few seasons.
Yeah, the power came along with age. In fact, both of you have been in the surprise in the spring training. And the first home run he hit in the fall league was off the scoreboard. And I called back to Kansas City that night, and I said, the power is coming. I saw it.
Well, Jeremy Guthrie gets a strikeout of Nick Castellanos and ends the top half of the third inning. Art would like to keep you another half inning if that's all right.
Be fine.